And then if you look at the Marianne Depere novels of Parish Plessis, in which you have Nylon Angel, Code Noir, and Crash Deluxe, everybody lives in these crammed-in places. And a lot of these crammed-in setups, these crammed-in barracks as well, they kind of remind me of some of the living spaces in Neuromancer. And what was interesting about those Marianne Depere novels is how it shows a society in which people have to live alongside poisons, pollution, bad food, and horrible air, and so much that we have some characters that have become carriers of diseases and poisons. Even some feral kids are carriers of diseases, and some of them make their own biological weapons just to stay safe. And so that was another morbid setup that's found in those Marianne Depere novels. And those are some pretty good novels, and if you'd like me to repeat them, I will. The Marianne Depere novels are Nylon Angel, Code Noir, and Crash Deluxe. And I really recommend you, the viewer, to take a good look at them, because I think those are pretty good novels. All three of them are quick reads, and they're pretty good. And before I go, I would just like to mention one more thing in Neuromancer, is that in the living spaces in Neuromancer were pretty bizarre as well. You had the main character, Case and Molly. Sometimes they would be in a crummy hotel room, and then other times he would get himself shacked up in what they would call coffins. Now, coffins are either within a certain building, or they're retrofitted on top of buildings or on the sides of buildings, and sometimes they would be combined to be buildings themselves. But what coffins were these very small rooms, not that wide and not that high as well. Sometimes you kind of have to crouch in to get them, but these coffins were just basic rooms. Had a foam bed, maybe a couple of places to place drinks or whatever, but they didn't have anything, anything to provide cleanliness, nothing to provide hygiene, nothing. You had to go somewhere else for that. You would say that these rooms were about as long as a Chevy Malibu, and then probably just as high as a Malibu, or maybe just a little higher, and just a really small living space. And he usually went to those places as a last resort. But the way William Gibson described it in Neuromancer were that these coffins were just retrofitted either on or within themselves, on top of buildings or any place. And it just provided just another example of the type of morbid living conditions for a lot of these characters. And it has a lot of connections to what's going on in the real world right now. When I went to grad school in San Francisco, as well as took some trips there as well, and different trips across Anaheim and different parts of LA, what I discovered was how a lot of people, especially young people, are crammed into an apartment, maybe 2 or 3 people to a small apartment that either had 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. And I mean, not only are the young people going into a bad job market, but it's just living spaces these days that are reasonable are very hard to come by. And I saw a lot of it when I was in grad school. Some guys left the graduate apartments in order to go into small apartment rooms, and they would barely have enough to share the rent, and that immediately reminded me of some of the characters from Snow Crash sharing that storage garage. And I thought, this is interesting. And I know that in different parts of San Francisco, I know that in some of the poorer neighborhoods, whether it was Tenderloin or the different parts of Chinatown, I saw with my own eyes and how there were 3 or 4 people shacked up all together in a small apartment room. And living there is expensive, but I just found it very amazing in how this is just becoming more common, and it's starting to become common in a few suburb apartments as well, where a lot of people are changing, just sharing rooms. And suburbs as well, there'd be a home, and there'd be tons of people just living in that one home. So there's a few things going on in America, and as well as a few other developed countries as well, which can immediately remind people of some of the living spaces that we've seen in cyberpunk science fiction stories. And there's a lot of comparisons, and when I looked at some of the documentaries on both television and on YouTube, when journalists would interview people like William Gibson or Neil Stephenson, they would always say in some of their videos that these authors are writing about the present rather than writing about the future. They just write about the present, but they add futuristic elements to it. But you see an awful lot of present day scenarios in a lot of these cyberpunk novels, and I just find all of that very, very interesting. And anyway, this is the topic I wanted to talk about, and I hope it was helpful for anybody who's trying to explore some of the main themes of cyberpunk science fiction. And I really recommend you, the viewer, to take a look at the Marianne Depere novels. Just Google Nylon Angel and you'll immediately find links to Amazon or any type of place where you can take a look at the book. Maybe try your libraries as well. It's a bunch of good books, as well as, even though I would find this hard to believe, but if you haven't taken a look at some of the more notable examples like Neuromancer or Ghost in the Shell, I'd recommend you guys take a look at those. But anyway, I hope all of you who watched, I hope this was very helpful, and I appreciate all you viewers for your time, and I hope this was educational to figure out. I hope this was all educational to help you figure out cyberpunk and what it's all is about. Probably it's a very good form of science fiction, and I hope a lot more people can get into it. And I think that's about it. I think I've got everything for this topic. I love these stories. These stories seem to have a kind of a Jules Verne effect these days. So I'm eager to see what stories authors come out with in the next few years, and see if there's any good tie-ins to what's going on right now in the world, be it pollution or anything. It's I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see what happens, and I hope things get better. I hope we get clean food and all those things. I hope the Japan thing gets fixed. Like now, I hope it gets fixed very soon, because I love seafood, and I don't really want to think about Japan while I'm eating seafood. But I hope those people over there recover, and I hope the plants, if anything, whether they cover it up with cement or something, I hope Japan really heals itself, and my thoughts go out to the people of Japan, and I hope they fully recover, and we'll see what happens in the future. But anyway, thank you for stopping by here. I really appreciate your time, and have a very good rest of the week or month, and everybody have a good rest of the day. See y'all later. Bye.